The ghillie suit. Randy Lee Tenley, 44, of Kalispell, Montana, stepped into the right-hand lane of U.S. Highway 93 on the night of the 26th of August 2012, wearing a full-body military camouflage suit. His plan, friends told troopers, was to make passing drivers think they'd spotted Bigfoot, so they'd call in a Sasquatch sighting. The bushy foliage suit that made him look like a creature in the dark did one other thing. It made him nearly impossible for drivers to see. A car driven by a 15-year-old girl with a learner's permit struck him in the lane. As he lay on the roadway, a second car, driven by a 17-year-old girl, hit him again. Police said they couldn't tell which impact killed him. Trooper Jim Schneider said alcohol may have been a factor. The torn trousers. Around 4 p.m. on the 14th of March 2018, a 40-year-old laborer named Ravender bent down to pick up a block of wood at a plywood factory in Nangloi, in outer West Delhi, India. He'd come from Arrah in Bihar 4 years earlier and had been mocked that day for the tear in the back of his trousers. A co-worker who ran the airjet used to slice the wooden block saw that tear. According to the Times of India, he shoved the nozzle into the torn trousers and pressed it against Ravinder's anus. The other workers laughed at first. Then Ravinder staggered and fell face down. The compressed air had blasted through his rectum and shredded his intestines. His co-workers rushed him to a local dispensary, then to a government hospital. He didn't even tell the doctors what happened at first, only admitting it when they said he'd need surgery. He died during treatment the next day, the police citing damage to his intestines and severe internal bleeding. The man who'd operated the jet was physically held by co-workers and handed to police: eggs, mayonnaise, and leaves. Just before 1 a.m. on the 15th of February 2014, 15-year-old Adrian Broadway rode with about 6 other teenagers in a 2007 Hyundai Sonata to the home of 48-year-old Willie Noble in southwest Little Rock, Arkansas. They dumped eggs, mayonnaise, and leaves on a car outside his house, payback for an earlier prank by Noble's own teenage son. Noble came out and opened fire on the vehicle. 2 bullets struck the door, another the back window. 1 round hit Adrian in the head. The teens sped to a gas station for help, and she was rushed to Arkansas Children's Hospital, where she was pronounced dead. Noble was charged with first-degree murder and 5 counts of aggravated assault and held on $1 million bond. A police lieutenant with 20 years on the force said he'd never seen a case like it. The covered stop sign. On the 17th of August 2011, sisters Jeannie Shea, 81, and Mary Spangler, 85, were driving through a rural intersection in Pickaway County, Ohio, with Jeannie at the wheel. They never stopped, because the stop sign that should have controlled their approach had been wrapped in plastic and smeared with petroleum jelly. 2 local men had covered the sign's face as a prank, making it invisible to anyone coming up on it. Jean drove straight into the intersection and collided with a car that had the right-of-way. Mary, the passenger, died from her injuries. Jean hung on in a Columbus hospital until September 6, when she too died. The 2 men were charged with involuntary manslaughter in Mary's death and pleaded not guilty. The Halloween noose. On Sunday afternoon, the 22nd of September, 2013, 16-year-old Jordan Moreland was decorating his family's home in Louisville, Kentucky for Halloween. He'd been pranking relatives all day, and a noose hung from a tree in the front yard as a decoration. To scare his little sister, he slipped his head through the noose and pretended to hang himself. He became disoriented and passed out, and as he lost consciousness, the noose tightened around his neck. His sister ran in, saying he wasn't moving, with drool coming from his mouth. Their mother first assumed it was another prank. She found him hanging, unable to lift him. Paramedics got him on life support, but about 12 hours later he died of organ failure after his brain was starved of oxygen. Police ruled the death accidental. The fake gun scare. In 2006, in Manchester, Vermont, 23-year-old Nicholas Bell decided to pull a prank on his friend Jeffrey Charbonneau, who had fallen asleep at the residence where they were both staying. The idea was a fake gun scare, to wake him up frightened. The problem was, the weapon Bell chose was a real, loaded rifle. Bell pointed it at the sleeping man and pulled the trigger. As Manchester police put it, he fired the weapon, which was a real rifle, striking the victim while he slept. Charbonneau died from the gunshot wound, never having woken up. Bell was arrested and charged with manslaughter. Eggs at passing cars. Just after midnight on the 2nd of December 2006, 14-year-old Danny Crawford and two friends were throwing eggs at passing cars in Columbus, Ohio. One of the cars they hit was a Jeep Cherokee. The driver of that Jeep chased the teens down. As Danny tried to run away on foot, a passenger in the Jeep opened fire. A bullet struck Danny while he fled, and he was killed, shot dead over a handful of eggs. Police identified the gunman as 22-year-old Michael Gross Jr., who was already in jail on unrelated charges when they charged him with murder and tampering with evidence. There was no struggle and no weapon on the teen's side. Investigators described it purely as retaliation for the prank. The cling film. On the 23rd of December, 2014, 17-year-old Sergei Kasper was in a classroom at Polytechnic College, Moscow, Russia, a quiet teenager who had become a target for bullies. During a lesson, with the teacher present, classmates decided to make him the subject of a filmed stunt. They wrapped his body in cling film, binding his arms to his sides so he couldn't move or break a fall, and stood him near a toilet stall as they laughed. Bound from shoulders to feet, Sergei lost his balance and fell, reportedly striking his throat on the edge of a desk and crushing his esophagus. Unable to move or clear his airway, he suffocated. Reports stressed that the teacher stayed in the room and never intervened. The fog machine. On the 28th of February 2020, Yekaterina Didenko, a 29-year-old Russian pharmacist and Instagram influencer with around 1.5 million followers, threw herself a birthday party at an indoor pool complex in Moscow. About 18 friends and family showed up. Part of it was streamed live to her followers. For the big visual, the plan was a dramatic fog effect over the water. So her husband, Valentin, poured about 55 pounds of dry ice straight into the pool. Here's the chemistry she, of all people, might have been expected to know. Dry ice is frozen carbon dioxide, and when it hits water, it sublimates fast, dumping huge volumes of CO2 into the air. People started choking and collapsing almost immediately. 3 guests died, including Valentin, the man who'd poured it in. Experts told Russian outlets they died of pulmonary edema, their lungs flooding after the carbon dioxide displaced the breathable air. The royal prank call. Around 5:30 a.m. London time, on the 4th of December 2012, 46-year-old nurse Jacinta Saldana answered the phone at King Edward VII's hospital, where the Duchess of Cambridge was being treated for severe morning sickness. On the line were 2 Australian DJs from 2Day FM, one impersonating Queen Elizabeth. Saldana believed the call was real and transferred it to the ward. She never disclosed a single medical detail herself, yet when the recording was broadcast worldwide as comedy, her voice was part of the global joke. 3 days later, on December 7th, she was found hanged in her nurse's accommodation. The coroner ruled she took her own life, with the prank call clearly pressing on her mind, and she'd left notes naming the 2 hosts. No one was ever criminally charged. The sandbag. On the 19th of December 2017, 22-year-old Marquise Bird from Warren, Michigan, was riding in the passenger seat of a car on Interstate 75 near Toledo, Ohio. Up on an overpass, 4 teenagers, around 13 and 14 years old, had been throwing rocks at passing cars, then escalated to sandbags. One of those sandbags came down off the overpass and struck the car Bird was in. He was critically injured and died in the hospital 3 days later. The 4 teens pleaded guilty. 3 were sentenced to 4 years in the Department of Youth Services. The Bulletproof Book. On the 26th of June 2017, 20-year-old Pedro Ruiz III stood on his property in Norman County, Minnesota, holding a thick hardcover book against his chest. He'd convinced his girlfriend, Mona Lisa Perez, that the book would stop a bullet, and they were filming it as the launch video for a YouTube channel. She was pregnant with their 2nd child. Ruiz stood at arm's length, marked the spot on the book, and had Perez aim a .50 caliber Desert Eagle, one of the most powerful handguns made. She fired once. The book didn't stop it. The bullet passed straight through and into his chest, killing him. Perez called 911, but it was too late. She pleaded guilty, was banned from ever owning a firearm, and barred from profiting off the video. Thanks so much for rocking with the channel for real. Hit that subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss a single one. And got a topic you want me to dig into next? Drop it in the comments.